Welcome to the program, Brooke Williams, senior investigative reporter and senior trainer at the New England Center for Investigative Journalism at BU, contributor to the New York Times. She has written, along with Eric Lipton, and for the third piece, Nicholas Confessore, the two separate pieces on the blurry line, I guess you could call it, of think tanks and think tank scholars between lobbying and corporate consultant. Brooke, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with part one, which was released, I guess, end of last week in the New York Times. And I want to start with a clip of Elizabeth Warren, which is part of that piece. It's a 90-second clip, but it outlines, at least broadly speaking, a problem with think tanks. Here's Elizabeth Warren from that New York Times piece.
If a corporation wants to influence what we're doing here in the United States Senate, and they want to do it through lobbying, they have to register. And all of that has to be disclosed, and who their lobbyists are have to be disclosed. So when they come in here, you know this is a corporation that's advancing its own economic interests. Buyer beware. But what the corporations, some of them are doing, is they're taking a bank shot at that. So they take a lot of money, because they got plenty of money to spend. They put it into a think tank with a few strings attached. And the think tank comes up with the research that just so happens to advance the interests of the corporation. And then someone from the think tank takes it to the United States Senate and hands it around. What's really happened is the corporation has both hidden what it is doing and it has bought the glossy name of independence of that think tank. My view is that this is thinly disguised lobbying, but lobbying nonetheless. Doing it under the other umbrella, under the pretense that this is independent research, that's what makes it so dangerous. That then means, right here in the Senate, we can make bad decisions that may favor a corporation, a particular one that paid for it, but not decisions that favor the American people.
And I would say that's not just a problem in the context of the U.S. Senate. And so, Brooke, there are think tanks, right? And there are think tanks. And Brookings, right. Tell people what you think I mean by that, because my sense is, there's Brookings, and then there's, the Heritage Foundation, let's say. Tell us what the distinction is, and particularly in the context of, and not just in the Senate, but also it strikes me as just like in the NPR world, if there is such a thing.
So, in the big picture, what we're talking about here are papers that have the patina of independence, perhaps even academic independence, that are financed and shaped, even in some cases, by corporations. And when they're provided to, lawmakers, whether it's Congress or federal agencies, they are then used to shape policies that affect our lives. Now, when it comes to different types of think tanks, yes, some think tanks are ideologically, to the right, to the left, conservative, progressive, and then there are some that are in the middle. We examined 75 think tanks. There are many think tanks in Washington, D.C., of all sorts of stripes.
And so, when they're in the middle, and this is the story, at least in part one, one of the big stories was, it seems to me that when they're in the middle, they're the most ripe, I guess, for corporate sponsorship. Is that?
Yeah. Brookings' work and the Center for Strategic and International Studies, there are think tanks in Washington, D.C. that some view the work that comes out, and much of it is, some view the work that comes out as independent of corporate interests or foreign government interests, as scholarship that was not influenced, that was not part of a broader lobbying and influence campaign by a corporation, right? And what we discovered is that in many cases it is part of a lobbying campaign, and in many cases that's not disclosed.
Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.